Hey, what is going on, everyone? This is Rashad, and this is our journey to a million. So, today I want to discuss an article about a young lady who bought a house at the top of the market, and now she regrets that purchase. Let's go ahead and dive into this article and see what they're talking about here. She bought her house as the market peaked. Now she regrets it. This is a BuzzFeed News article. Record housing prices and rapidly rising interest rates have many people questioning the value and viability of homeownership. We're just house poor now. So before I get into this article, I've always preached that there's no perfect time to buy a house. The only time I recommend for anybody to buy a house is after they have run the numbers and they can completely afford the house and not according to what the mortgage company has deemed them appropriate to pay, but what they know they would be comfortable paying. Also factoring in all of the expenses and repairs and those kind of things. So let's dive into this article. Miss Riggins, and this is Columbus, Georgia. So it says she had 30 days to move out of her landlord's management company. Let me see. Or she had 30 days to move after her landlord's management company told her they were selling the home she was renting with her 3 children. She could not find an affordable rental in time. Of course, like everywhere else in the country, the rents were rising. She ended up moving her family into a hotel. Obviously hotels are very expensive. Nobody can afford to pay the fee for a hotel for a week, let alone a whole month. So then she said what we all say: if you're going to pay this rent, you might as well buy it. And we all get trapped in that particular situation. It is usually a difficult decision to make, whereas we can choose between paying, let's say, $2,000 a month for rent for a smaller home, or we could pay a $2,000 mortgage for a larger home. But people don't factor in the fact that there are going to be a lot more expenses that come along with that $2,000 mortgage. And of course, you are responsible for everything as well. And let's see. It says that the last 2 years have been chaotic and frustrating for many buyers. And I know, trust me, being a part-time realtor, it has definitely been rough, especially with the bids for homes that have seemed to die down quite a bit with the latest rise in interest rates. Yep, right there it says, as the low mortgage rates and record high rents, that it caused a unprecedented hysteria to buy homes. People have been basically, I'm not gonna say bullied into buying homes, but they've been told that the only real way to combat rising rents is to purchase a home of their own, not knowing that they are purchasing homes at the top of the market to obtain the American dream. And of course, the American dream is not an American dream to everyone. It could be an American nightmare if you do not purchase at the right time, or if you don't purchase when you could actually afford it. So let's see what's happening with this young lady. Let's skip around a little bit. It just says right here, all these factors have left these owners wondering whether it was worth it after all. I almost feel like it's a scam or a trick to get me more into debt. I worked so hard to get my credit up to even be able to apply for the mortgage. Homeownership is almost another way to keep people under. So it's a catch 22. You do what you feel is the right thing, and you purchase a home because you're taught from a young age, you got to buy a house, got to buy a house, got to buy a house. It's the American dream. So you think you're doing the right thing, but oftentimes, if you are not able to afford that mortgage, you are putting yourself in a box. You are tying your hands, and you are becoming house poor. And becoming house poor is basically like you putting shackles on yourself, and there's really not much you can do once you get to that point where you're house poor. You have to either up your jobs or you have to do something. But the next step after being house poor is to lose your house in a foreclosure or potentially leave bankruptcy. So let's look at this offer. She made a $202,000 offer on a 3-bedroom house with a yard. It was accepted, but interest rates were rising. I started back out so many times, especially when I was going through those bidding wars. And even with this, I didn't feel good about bidding that much. I never forget when my agent did the paperwork and turned it in, I didn't get any sleep at night. I remember calling her the next morning and was like, I'm thinking about backing out. Maybe I should, just to find a place to rent. Reagan said that the agent reminded her that a home is an investment, that when rates were lower, she could refinance, and suggested that she cut corners somewhere or try to pick up a part-time job. So let's kind of hit on that last comment, or that article about the agent. So one thing I have prided myself in, as I have spoken with clients over the years, is the fact that I have been able to talk people out of purchasing homes. So the beautiful thing about me being a part-time realtor is that I have a full-time position that pays well, so I can move a little differently than some agents I know in the industry. You know, I've always been open and upfront with people, and not saying that I wouldn't be like that if I didn't have a full-time job and I was desperate for the real estate income. It's just my personality. I got to let people know, like, hey, I don't think you can afford this. Stop looking at a $300,000 house because the mortgage company told you can afford a $300,000 house. Let's look at 225. I think that's more comfortable. That's more, you would be more comfortable with that payment as indicated by what you've told me all along. Just because they told you can afford $300,000 doesn't mean you actually can afford $300,000. So it clearly looks like this agent was the opposite. This agent was trying to force feed this young lady a house. And that happens quite often. If this is the agent's only form of income, the agent can't lose that commission. They can't lose the opportunity at what would be an approximate $6,000 commission on this deal, minus whatever the brokerage fees are. So they're going to walk away with anywhere from maybe $5,000 to $6,000. And, they're looking at it like, oh, I got a family to feed. By any means necessary, I'm going to do what I need to do in order to get this person in the house so I can get my check. And I just don't think we should operate like that as realtors. So clearly this lady it looks like she was forced. And a lot of time people, when they trust a professional, they're going to go by whatever the professional says. If this professional is telling her, hey, this is an investment, you need to buy right now, and then whenever the interest rates drop, you can refinance it. So I do believe, like, sure enough, a home can be an investment, but I didn't get into my house approaching it as an investment. I moved into my house with the belief that it was a place to stay. You need a place to stay. Regardless, you need to either pay rent or you need to pay a mortgage. And I felt that we needed to pay a mortgage, and I felt that getting a 15-year mortgage was our best option because we could completely and comfortably afford it. So for us, it ended up being a blessing. It's been one of the best purchases we could make. But imagine if we didn't have the ability to really pay our mortgage, if we felt hamstrung into, buying that particular house, or if it was not allowing us to make other payments. If we felt house poor, it wouldn't be an investment. It would be a nightmare. It would be a curse. So I have a bone to pick with this particular agent who I feel really coerced this young lady into buying a house. Of course, she made the final decision, but our clients trust us with these decisions. Let me see. She tried her best to shake off her nerves and moved ahead with the sale. It was a relief to finally be able to move her kids out of the hotel. But by the time she closed in July, her mortgage rate was 6%. So if you lock in a 3.5% or a 3% or 4% rate, and then by the time you close, it's 6%, clearly it's going to cause an issue. And right here it says there was a chain of financial consequences she was unprepared for. I feel like I bought more problems, which you do when you buy a house. I'm working on a few things I need to get repaired in my house right now. And those are just things that you have to deal with when you buy a house. Of course, when you are a tenant, you don't have to pay for those things up front. You let your landlord know, or you let the apartment complex know that this particular issue needs to be fixed, they fix it. But don't forget, or don't, think for a second that that stuff is not factored in. It's not baked into the rent. So it's not free. It's just not, you're not necessarily feeling the pain as much as you would had you been a homeowner. So her monthly rent, remember, she felt that she could get into a house because she had to pay rent anyway. Her monthly rent was $800 a month, and her mortgage payment is $1,500 a month, which is basically twice as much as her rent was. And then, like I said, she needed repairs that her inspector did not catch. I mean, it's an older house, even new homes. Anybody will tell you when you do an inspection, it's going to come back with a bunch of items that need to be corrected. And if your inspector doesn't catch it, prior to the negotiations, there's nothing you can do about it. None of the kitchen appliances work. That is a shame. That inspector needs to be put on blast. That's unacceptable. Electrical issues are going to cost a lot of money, period. The roof need to be fixed. Mold under the cabinets. Like, I don't know, was this inspector hired by the seller? Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. She depleted her savings, nearly maxed out her credit cards. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and stop my share on this. I think I've seen enough here. But the bottom line is that when you are trying to decide whether or not you want to continue to rent or whether or not you want to buy a home, you need to sit down. You need to list all of your debts. You need to look at your income. You really need to do a very, very conservative budget and factor in for just so many unexpected costs. You need to, I believe, do a worst case scenario budget. Like, what is the absolute worst thing that can happen to me, and what will be the absolute highest cost that I have to pay for that particular repair? And then you need to factor in anything else you can factor in. You need to think about, do I have my 3 to 6 month emergency fund? What would happen to me if I lost my job? So you just need to factor everything in it. You cannot go into a home purchase with the belief that, homes always appreciate, because they don't always appreciate. I was in a market when I got my first house in 2007. The home went from $160,000 valuation to $110,000 4 years later. So the market does not always appreciate it. It appreciates most of the time. But then when you factor in all of the repairs that you've paid over the years and property taxes, all that stuff, those are expenses. And you need to, bake those into the fact that, yeah, my house appreciated all this time, but it didn't come for free. I paid something for it. Of course, rent is rent, and you're not, necessarily getting that money back. But as I said, you have to pay for a place to stay. That's just the bottom line. So if you look at your home as a place to stay, rather than saying it's a guaranteed investment, then it will allow you to just make a better decision overall. So there's no shame in renting. If you see some of these TikTok videos and you see some of the content creators, you will see that there are plenty of millionaires, plenty of people who are well off who rent and have no intentions of buying. They like the flexibility of renting, or they like the options that they have by renting, or they just don't want the responsibility of owning a home. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So please read that entire article from BuzzFeed News and be sure to really analyze whether or not it is worth it for you to buy a home. Please, please, please do not allow your blessing, or do not allow what is supposed to be a blessing to be a curse to you and your family, because there's not a lot of worse things in the financial space than being house poor. All right. Well, I appreciate you all, and thank you for continuing to support the channel. We are over 1560 now, so please go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Thank you all very much. You all have a phenomenal day.